This conference will now be recorded.
He looks familiar. I don't know. Yeah.
You guys ready? Okay, it is now 6:30 and I'll call this town council meeting to order. The first thing on the agenda is the invocation with Nathan Sweet from the First Baptist Church.
Good evening. Would you pray with me? Father, your word tells us that this is the day that you have made, and so we will rejoice and be glad in it. God, we thank you for this beautiful place that we are blessed to call home. We thank you for the beautiful ocean, the creation that is all around us. It's just a reminder of your awesome handiwork we get to see every single day, and so we thank you for that. But God, tonight I want to pray for these leaders in this meeting that is about to take place. Your word tells us that you established each one of them in their position, and therefore we should show them honor and respect as well as pray for them. And so, God, that's what I want to do tonight. I want to pray for each of our leaders. You know their hearts, you know their desires. And today I would just pray that you would give them wisdom, give them love for one another in this community, and give them strength. I also pray for their families, that you would watch over them. And more than anything, I pray that you would be honored by what takes place here tonight. God, I thank you for more than anything, the new life that I have in Christ and the personal relationship that I have with you. And I thank you for the hope that you offer us. God, I thank you that while we live in a world of great uncertainty and just seeming chaos at times, that we have peace, knowing that you are sovereign over it all. So God, we love you and we thank you. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sir, I want to thank you for the invocation. Thanks for coming. Okay, I will now accept motions relating to the agenda. And if we have no motions relating to the agenda, the next thing is the minutes for February 8th and February 11th.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the regular town council meeting of Tuesday, February 8th, and the workshop meeting of February 11th as presented.
Second. Okay, is there any discussion before we vote? Mr. Sammy?
Yes.
Holder?
Yes.
Keating?
Yes.
Crucklaw?
Yes.
Kinkin?
Yes.
Drake?
Yes.
And myself is yes too. So that passed unanimously. Next thing on the agenda is public comments, and these are public comments relating to agenda items only. Anybody who wishes to speak has a total of 5 minutes. Are there any public comments? Okay, we're moving right along. The next thing is a peer update in communications, and this is with John O'Brien from Consensus Construction and Jonathan Sigmund of Collins Engineering. Step up, gentlemen. Thank you. Be prepared for some questions.
Speak as close to the microphone as you can.
Will do. As far as the pier update, podium is complete. Pile bends for the ocean pier, they're out to pile bend 5. Trestle is 70% complete, and starting tomorrow, the wall panels, pre-manufactured wall panels, plywood, we finally got plywood, was delivered over the weekend, and the manufacturer is going to be on site starting the wall panels. In the next 60 days, we have the ramp, monument stairs, and the stairs inside the stair tower. So that's probably the next 60 days as far as construction.
Yeah, and just as far as coordination goes, as of right now, there is one submittal and one RFI out that need to be responded to, And both of those require information from the Surf Diner folks in order for us to answer. So we're waiting for information from them, and they know that. And we've been in contact with them as recently. I know Consensus spoke with them this morning about getting that information. So we're trying to get that, but otherwise everything is caught up. And I'll also say we're over a year into a project that's a $15 million project, and we haven't hit 100 RFIs yet. I'm working on another project in Charleston. We have a very, very, very small part of. That's another project of this scope, and there are 740 in 2 years. So I just want to say, like I think we've been working together and formed a good relationship so that we're just solving problems together. And I think that's a testament to that, the fact that there's nothing out there and the fact that there haven't been that many RFIs over about 14, 15 months of a project construction.
Okay.
I'll add a little bit to what Jonathan was saying. So we did a site visit today. Jonathan came to our office and we just put everything on the table, going over what we have coming in this market. There's a lot of challenges. So now that we're in the home stretch, we have a couple challenges that we have to accomplish. So they're minimal, and I got a list here which we're going to submit this month. So right now we have a siding challenge because there's a special commercial grade siding. There's a manufacturer issue. So we're working on a solution with the design team. Some handrails, there's some VE, there's a lighted handrail. We got to work out some handrails. We got insulation under the podium. There's an intent to put insulation underneath the podium, which may or may not be needed. We're looking into it. It may not be a good thing, or it may be a code thing. We're still working that out with the design team. The light fixtures are approved for the pier. A color was selected. The electrician, which is Melton Electric, is checking on a lead time. So that looks to be solved. Utilities getting routed out to the pier. That was an issue we talked about before, and we have a solution. They've worked with our engineer, Collins Engineering, and the electrical engineering. So that's been solved structurally and then also from an MEP. Jonathan was on, we had a conference call also with the civil engineer. He's working up some different options for the parking lot, because I think it's important to know that we have, this project is basically phase one. So we might want to report to the, to the town when this project is substantially complete. It's basically a shell with an operational pier. So we still need to have, it won't be ready with an ice cream stand, and all the upfits still have to happen. I think as council, if you communicate that, we will have a pier, the pier will be complete, the shell will be complete, but probably won't be fully functional till early next season. It'll be minimal, maybe some kiosks, things of that nature. So you have to upfit, lease the buildings out, and do all that. So that's underway. So we had a conference call with the civil engineer. He's going to give a couple different options. That's something to start thinking about, because it's got to be designed, and it's got to be priced, and it's got to be permitted. So we would definitely want to get the parking lot situation. So when you pull up into the pier, you have a new parking lot, and there's going to be a bunch of options presented. The next thing, Mr. Shanahan's been working on, and we got AutoCAD files from our engineers, gave to the architect, and he's laying out the way the pier is designed so that we can plan where the kiosks are going, make sure they're serviced properly with utilities, hose bibs, electric. That way we don't finish the pier and then we try to figure out where all your vendors are going to go.
Right, and that's based on the slight change to the overall layout of the pier from the VE process. And so originally there were certain spans that were tapered, and now they're longer. So we're relaying out where all the fish stations and the hose bibs and the receptacles are going to be, so that it's an accurate representation when this goes out to RFP for the different vendors who are going to want to be out on the pier. So that's where that comes from, just so you guys understand.
last and final thing on my list is, we're all aware of, is the Surf Diner. So we do now have a schematic plan from Surf Diner's independent design team. So we're working through right now, we say we have shop drawings for the storefront, but maybe there was going to be a slider, now it's going to go to, or it's going to be, it was an overhead door and it may go to a slider. So we have to price that and then modify the shop drawings as submittals for the glass, to show some coordination with that independent design team. So you have glass, plumbing, we put in the drains, modifications to the openings, roof penetrations for the kitchen, and then there's a lot of kitchen equipment. So we have to work through with getting up to access to the equipment and make sure it's supported. So there is some coordination issues with, or challenges that we have to work through with the Surf Diner.
Right, and one of the things that's very important to understand is the system that comes out is that the metal building system that's being used for the buildings is a proprietary system. So if we want to have, if the Surf Diner needs openings to be placed in that system, that needs to be done now so that everything is warranted. If they come back later and they put an opening in there and put a penetration and something leaks, that voids the whole warranty. So all this, so when we're talking to them and we tell them we need this information, you know, it's critical because this is the last chance that we have to get this stuff designed and warranted by the manufacturer. So this is a critical item.
See what else I got notes here. We basically, for contract duration, this on the 25th is the next pay app. So we will submit all the documents that we need. So we've analyzed weather, which, you know, we hopefully don't need, but we've put together spreadsheets showing every day. Then it goes on Collins's form, and then they analyze and look at the weather days that are impacted. That goes in this month. And then what we have is 2 schedules, and I want to explain that. So one thing that we need to keep in mind is when the contract was originally issued, it took the deduct for the steel. And so that was a bad thing. So we were 3 months into the project when they realized they had to go back. So there's a lot of kudos to this design team and the engineers on our side, because 3 months into it, they value engineered, redesigned it, and they ordered all the materials basically at risk. So by the time the design was done and then approved, we were in October 2021, but we already had materials coming. So when you have an impact schedule, that shows the original schedule and how it's impacted. Our impact schedule is out in 2023. The schedule we're working on is very close to the date that we need. We call that the accelerated schedule. So I think that they've mitigated, you know, those actions very, very well. So that has to be done with the design engineer and the engineers on our side. So that's basically where it's at. So on the 25th, you have an impact schedule saying, hey, this happened, this is where it takes it out. This is how we've accelerated the schedule, and this is what our goal is, or better. So accelerated, impacted, and then I'll give also the list of these 4 or 5 minor things that we got to accomplish. We're having material supply issues. So even ordering plywood coming from 5 or 6 different sources, things of that nature. So they're just a little bit, but so far everything's been handled. We have 2 or 3 things we got to handle probably in the next 2 months.
Right, and that's part of how we've been working together, is to make sure that those items, because of the supply chain issues, we've been really working together to make sure that any of those items that are on the supply chain that are critical, we're making sure to get those submittals approved absolutely immediately, to keep everything on schedule. And that's been one of the things we've really had to work on very diligently because of the way construction and materials procurement is now compared to how it was in 2020 when this whole project was bid. It is a different world, unfortunately. And you know, so we're working to make sure that everything, you know, stays on schedule, and you know, work excuse me, and making sure that all the schedules are in alignment so that so that, so that the town knows exactly what the substantial completion date is going to be based on the impacts that they've had with material procurement.
And the last thing is I got word on the meeting minutes, I think you were on as well, Mr. Mayor. We are bringing in a third crew on the, that's a bridge building crew. So the marine contractor is bringing in a third crew. So we're going to have 2 small crews and then a third one working to accelerate the pier. The way we look at the schedule now, get these ramps in and the buildings up in the next 60 days, it looks like it's a pretty close to finished product. And you have to do your upfits and your utilities and, finish his elevator. If we can accelerate this pier and catch up with a third crew, then it's going to be looking really good. And that's what they're doing.
Questions from people?
I'd just like to ask, if you said you're on the 5th pier going out to, how many are there?
So they're called, it's a pile band, which is,
Yes.
it's the pile. So there's 13 in total. We hope in the next 2 weeks we can get 6 and 7 in. It's a 2-part process.
Yeah.
They drive the steel and then you see the big concrete sleeve that goes over it. So you've now seen, I think we're up to 5 now that they're in and they're sleeving. So that's how the 2 and 3 crews can work together.
Yeah, and hopefully now that they're out over the water, there's going to be less impacts due to tides because you're already out over the water and you're already, so the construction of the trestle is already out over there. So there should be fewer days that are impacted by tides once we're out that far out over the water. So that should help with making sure things stay on track.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank y'all gentlemen for coming and going over some of this. I appreciate it. But my question to y'all is everybody asked is, when do you think a completion date, not saying completed pier, but when's the date that you think that y'all going to be done to turn it over to the town for the town to start using it? What is the date? You say there are 2 different schedules or 3 different schedules you can go off of. Right now, what are we looking at? What dates?
So we have a draft schedule that we are sending in on the 25th. So the impact schedule is way out because we've had some challenges. So the accelerated schedule is somewhere within 30 days of where we're at contractually. So we're shooting for around October.
October.
But we may, and when we're trying to approve, I'm hoping to have the buildings up in as early as possible. I mean, we're hoping for July.
Right, but again, that's not fully fit out buildings
No.
because that's different and that doesn't
Yes.
include the parking lot. There.
Yes.
That's just the pier and the shell of the buildings, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
At the worst case, what are we looking at? If you can't get done in October, what's the worst case we're looking at? 23?
Yeah, I mean, I think with everything we have, information we have, and then things that we've accomplished as far as challenges that we've overcome, and then these 8 that I gave you, I think that the piers are going to be fully operational, everything running March of 2023. But this construction contract, we want to have done by the end of the year, if not end of the summer. So right now, it doesn't look like we're going to be good on the podium with the buildings, and we can actually start in there. We won't know exactly how much we're going to make up on the pier until we get this third crew. They're really starting to make progress now. So when they get that third crew out there, I mean, if the piles start really going in, a pile bend, every 1 or 2 a week, then we're going to adjust the schedule.
So in that case, right now, the pylons is what's really behind schedule is as of right now.
Yes, sir. I mean, so the like I said, is they had to be entirely redesigned in 3 months. And, that was,
And material procurement.
material procurement.
That is really the big thing is it's just taking all, these are these are very large steel piles. They're not just off the shelf things that fabricators make all the time. And so so the procurement time is just not what it's typically been in the past.
And to bring a little bit back of the history, they did a great job with this because so when we realized that FEMA needed to go back to concrete, which we're already a couple of months into it, it was like, it was a serious get together,
Yes.
town, contractor, engineers and everything. So even going back to the regular concrete would have been $500 or $1 million more than what this new system is. So this new system, Intercoastal's engineers worked with Collins, and the system that they designed was based on material that they could get. So if you notice, before it was approved, these big, large steel pipes that come from Louisiana or whatever already were hitting the job, like in sporadic. So they didn't design something and wait for it to get approved. They made sure that they could get the material first, designed it, ran it by Collins, Jonathan, and he approved it, but we were still procuring material in the background. So they did, so the answer to that question is that impact from changing the design might have put the project out a year. And we're trying to mitigate that for a couple months. And it looks, I say in the next 60 days, we're going to know if a miracle can happen. I mean, the next 60 days are going to be huge.
Mr. Mayor.
I have a question. You said if once the building gets up, that you can't really do anything or the warranty will be void on certain things. Let's just, for example, one of the buildings that we haven't leased yet ends up being a restaurant and they want to put in a roof vent. Will that void the warranty?
It has to be, it has to be approved. We can't, as a project team, us included with the town, we have to use the engineers that designed it as an approval process.
I understand.
If it was right out here, we may allow somebody to come in there and just chop up the building all they want or whatever. But on this particular project, because it is a public project owned by the city, we have to go through an engineering and
these companies that put together these type of systems, they will excuse me, they will work with you after the fact and say, hey, if you're going to put this opening in, here's what you need to do, or here's the contractor you need to use in order, they're certified to do this work. And then as long as you do that, then you can keep the warranty. It just has to be in conversation with them. If you don't have the conversation with them, that's different.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was wanting to ask you a question about you mentioned about the sliding glass doors or a roll-up door. We had approved the roll-up doors in the original bid specs. And that was basically the final dollar amount. If you make any changes in that, are you going back again to Surf Diner and using up to their max of $200,000 that we agreed as council towards any improvements or change orders or stuff like that in that? I just want to make sure of that because we don't want to get a bill at the end of it.
Yes, sir, Councilman Drake. That's exactly what we're doing. So we have the storefront and glass as currently designed,
Right.
bought out, engineered shop drawings in. They came in, I think, today, Matt said.
Okay.
So now there is a new design from Surf Design, Surf
Surf
Diner,
Diner.
but they were efficient. They're trying to put it inside the same openings.
Okay.
So then now we have to go back to the manufacturer, which is YKK, and get a price difference and then present
Well,
it to
Yeah.
the
If
town.
there's any delay or if there's any cost factor in the delay of this, are they being billed for that?
That is, yes.
They have been told that any costs that come to them because of Surf Diner, that they record it and present it to us, and it'll come from Surf Diner. And after the $200,000, nothing else is done unless Surf Diner say, yeah, we're going to pay for it.
Okay. That's what I want to make sure of.
I can tell you that the drains for that were put in the rain by Doc, approved by Jonathan and my project manager, Matt, in the rain the day before the pour. So we got those in. So there was a little bit of hustle, some extra rebar. So we got those in.
Yeah.
Now we're on the next phase.
Right.
So there won't be a whole lot, like the interiors won't be a whole lot affecting the town, but like the drains, possibly moving some electric, and then that affects the outside shell. And we've advised them to keep it within the building to make it simpler. And the architect is a local architect and we work with, and they appear to have done that so
And
far. But there is more of, it's more of a time thing than a dollars thing right now.
Now, when you turn that over back to them and they start outfitting the inside of that building and they start doing what they're going to do to the inside, are you going to be going behind them to make sure they're not in there cutting, doing something they shouldn't be doing before they do it? Or is there somebody going to come behind them and say, look, you cut this or you do this?
We spoke about that with Bill Shanahan, and we believe that they shouldn't do anything to the
Yeah.
building till it's totally turned over. Yeah,
Once-
unless it is how we've done it so far is it's submitted to us. We do it and we send it to the engineers of record to review it and approve it, because he did have to move some drains that they wanted to put where there were beams, and the structural engineer, Jonathan, said, there's no way.
Right.
So we've mitigated that first round, and now we're getting to the shell. And right now, I do not see major issues, except for there is a little time component and then probably some dollar exchange at credits and ads.
I just want to make sure they don't come up with the excuse of I'll ask for forgiveness after the fact. And
We can't really, to be honest, we can't really speak to what happens after the project's complete.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not our scope. So that, I mean. I
well,
think
somebody
that-
needs to be
There's-
looking at,
There's rules on that, and they can't do anything unless they bring it to us and they approve, and it's approved through an engineer that it doesn't affect anything. If they were to just come in and decide to put a hole in the
Right.
roof.
And they will.
And they didn't follow the rules, that actually a breach of contract. They can't do that.
just make sure they,
We'll be watching.
in
that,
writing,
sir.
understand that, and they will be responsible.
Yeah, they signed the contract, yes, sir.
The good thing is the outside architect firm is an established school. They do Horry County schools. They've been doing it for 20 years. He's very mindful of this,
Good.
and he has been bouncing everything that he wanted to do off Jonathan
Good.
and LS3P.
Good.
But they're public, probably 60% public work.
And
firms.
LS3P, who's our project architect, has worked with them many times, including on a personal level with
Okay.
Troy, who's the lead architect on this. So it's, and that's been good because it's allowed that channel of communications that's very comfortable and has helped.
It's good. It's just for both sides to have an understanding of
Exactly.
what's what.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mr. King.
Are they holding you up? Is Surf Diner, because they're getting stuff at the 11th hour, is that going to be a holdup?
The process of getting designed had started
Took a
10
lot of
months ago.
emails.
It's not as expeditious as it could be, but we're getting through it.
Bless you.
Yeah. And then
Don't let it become a problem. Please
Okay,
don't.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, tell them that.
just a couple questions. Where are we currently on the financial accounting of the Surf Diner changes? You said it's mostly a timing issue, and I know you've been struggling getting the information that you need so that, Doc's not out in the pouring rain trying to set drains. Had we had information, it could have been installed with the rest of the project. So where are we on that accounting? Because your additional time and the additional approval time and everything else needs to go against that $200,000. It's not just for material alone. So have we done any kind of estimate on, are we at 195 or are we at 82? Any order of magnitude?
Yes, so our office and Doc and Matt have handled that with accounting. So they're keeping that separate. We have to see the magnitude of the exterior shell, like the glass changes. Then we're going to put that all together and submit it to the town.
And that also includes LS3P and Collins Engineering.
Yeah,
Well,
we're-
not yours, but a full accounting.
Yeah,
Similar.
we all, I've spoken with LS3P and with RMF, the mechanical electrical plumbing engineer, and all of us are keeping a separate accounting of any time related to this. Obviously, the vast majority of those charges would be based on
Right.
the construction changes rather than ours. but we're all keeping an accounting of that to make sure that we have that. So far it's been a moving target though, because every time we discuss, there's another change to what they want to do. And so it's hard to get to that number. Hopefully with these this last submittal, I think it's the last changes. And then John can get the pricing done, and then we'll know exactly where we're at.
Okay.
And then we'll know if we're at a point where we have to have discussions like, hey, we're at 250 and something's got to give, or whether we're at a comfortable level, and then we can just all move forward. But we're just waiting for that pricing back on those items.
So the good thing is we procured the glass system specified it's YKK. So you have like Conair YKK.
Mhm.
So that's a great question with the time. So in reality, we now have all the engineered shop drawings back for the shell. With their approval, within a couple of days, we would order that, but we have to now wait for YKK to come back for the revision price and present it in order to release the base, the main stuff. So we may have to separate it to some extent, but we need them to give us the pricing back to see the changing the glass systems. But we do have that in-house. In a perfect world, if we didn't have that, they would approve it, that material be ordered and started to manufacture.
Well, and as you well know, in today's age, we can't afford too many wait and see kind of efforts, because the price of that glass, I'm sure when you bid this, is drastically different than the price of that glass today, which could be drastically different than the price next month. So we can't afford to have them delay their input into your design process. We need to be getting, in my opinion, a little bit more aggressive with due dates and saying, I need this input at this date so you can proceed with what you're doing on your expedited schedule. And if they miss that date, oh, well, they're not getting it. I mean, we've got to take a little bit harder line before we start seeing September goes into October, goes into December, and pretty soon, we're into next year before we even see a shell. I mean, this seems to be a common theme that we've had for this whole redesign effort, that, we've been talking about the siding issue for almost a year now, that we had value engineering and an alternative siding ready to be procured, and for whatever paperwork that didn't get processed, we lost that savings. Now we're going back scrambling. Well, what's the siding going to be? Well, here we are a year later. We still haven't even ordered siding. We still don't even know what the siding's going to be. I'm sure the price of siding now is drastically different than it was 2 years ago, or even a year ago when we identified a $30,000 or $50,000 savings on it that for some reason we lost because we couldn't process paperwork correctly. So what are we doing now? We should be smarter by now on these things that have to be answered, and they have to be responded to, so that we don't continue to incur these additional purchasing costs. So what are we doing differently? I know we tried to hire in the beginning of the program a project manager that was voted down. So, we got a volunteer that was willing to come in and help with, some of the communication pieces or so forth. That was kind of set by the wayside. So what do we need to do now to make sure this is actually delivered come September? What can the town do to help you, I guess, is where I'm going to.
I think, quick turnarounds. I mean, I don't know exactly the date, but I do know that they actually put together a panel of the siding and they brought it to council.
Yeah, and we
So-
all agreed with it.
So that one is on the list. So that one is now, it's a real issue, but it's because it was a special siding. So there's a nationwide, so Hardy siding is
Right.
one of the name brands, but the Hardy siding you see on every house is not the Hardy siding we were putting on this building.
Correct.
That plant has shut down, taken orders just within the time period of what we started the submittal and then the approval. So what that leaves is only 2 or 3 other manufacturers that make that with major lead times. So that is one we have to talk to the architects. We have to come up with the siding, because there's the base spec was Boral, which we think wasn't so great. They're backed up. And then there's a Nichaha product, they're 10 months lead time. So that is one of the 5 things that we're in the home stretch that we don't have a solution for yet.
All right, and, along with that, I know we've talked about the exterior insulation as well. Excuse me, and whether that would be DHEC approved. You're out over open water. Excuse me. It's invariably, it's going to flake off at some point. Can whatever that insulation is going to fall into the water. I mean, that's got to be a whole DHEC evaluation. We've been talking about that for at least a year on this project. Why is it taking so long to come to these conclusions so that you can move ahead, without, I mean, quite frankly, I think 100 RFIs is a little excessive, in my opinion. I know there are things that come up, you need to ask questions, you need answers to them, but how can we do this better going forward?
Well, I think the DHEC situation, again, that's sort of like the pile that going to writing the contract for a deduct that wasn't really designed. I mean, that really put everybody back, because you have an aggressive schedule. 4 months in, everybody's got to stop, and that was recovered very, very well. The insulation, there was an addendum put to the contract that adds the DHEC. When you're dealing with the government agencies, okay, you have different government agencies, and when they overlap, that sort of becomes complicated. So I believe that the architect is looking at it as a building code. I don't believe that we probably need it or it's good. I don't want to speak for Jonathan. He has his own opinion. But I think that the DHEC, you're not going to find that answer per se. But what I can tell you from talking to associates, engineers, marine contractors is they don't put foam on docks for a lot of reasons. You have turtle situation, you have birds. So I'm thinking that may become a non-issue, hopefully. I think if for some reason somebody determines it's needed, it's going to be a cost and it's going to be an issue. That's my professional opinion for what it's worth.
Well, it's going to be a cost not only in money, it's going to be a cost in time.
Yes.
Because to put that exterior insulation will require a DHEC approval. And that's in who knows how long, 18 months, another 2 years before we would get that through the system. So, I mean, that's enough to tell me right there that somebody better be getting on the bandwagon to say, yeah, we don't need to do this. It's not a standard practice. We've got any number of contractors and experts that have built bridges and docks and piers and so forth that, this is not something we typically do. This should be a no-brainer thing and off your list to be worried about.
Right.
So that's what I mean. What can the town be doing differently to help you stop wasting time on unnecessary things? Or what can we do to take off of your plate, since you're having to act as our project manager for us? What can we be doing to take off your plate just to expedite this communication snafu that we experience on these RFIs and the information submittals, to make sure they're complete and what you need?
I think you may have to, with the DHEC, you may have to refer to maybe one of the consultants. Jonathan and I were at the project today and we were evaluating the scale of the pier and everything, and he was very pleased with it, and I was too. So basically, standing under the pier the way it is now feels really good. It's like it's going to be a good seat. So I'm not sure what the answer to that question is, except for that's a tricky one. We might need a consultant or somebody to jump in on that. That shouldn't affect the overall building, but I think it's one that people are going to see. And by some chance, if we get it wrong, it's going to be a real pain to scrape off 15,000 square foot of insulation under the pier. So, I mean, right now we have some kind of rigid, and they're looking at. So I think that's going to take a little bit of effort. It might be a consultant in conjunction with the architect and engineer.
Yeah, and I think we're dealing with 3 different issues, and one was the specific one with the insulation. And that's something that, yes, absolutely just needs to get it's all taken care of, and that's high priority for me now that a lot of these other things that are related to supply chain that we had to get done to make sure the project stays on schedule were taken care of. And now that we've taken care of those, we can start dealing with these issues that are still schedule impacted, but secondary schedule. And so that's already in plan. And then there's the second thing, which is just the general submittal process. And I think as anyone would understand, it took a little while for we hadn't worked together before. It took a little while for us to get in sync. And I would say that right now, I think we're operating very smoothly together, and that it took a while. I wouldn't say it started out smooth, but I think we're smooth now. And that's, I think, testament to working with these guys, and everyone just wants to get the project done properly for the town and as economically as possible. And so I don't think that the town needs to step in on anything on that front, because I think we've gotten to a point where we have very open communication. We have lots and lots of communications offline and phone calls. And I mean, I probably, one of their guys, Matt Whitley, who's one of the head soups. I'm on the phone with him every day. I mean, we're always talking and just trying to solve problems and making sure that things don't get to the point where anyone needs to know about them, right? We're just solving the problems that come up as things go on. I'm going to argue with you. I'd say 100 RFIs at this point of a project at this scale is actually very good. I mean, especially since so many things are like contractual RFIs, not, it's just, that's my experience. It's actually a very good job. And then the other thing is just dealing with permitting agencies. That's different. That's a totally different animal altogether. Where yes, you are under something. You have to wait for someone else to control that process. And I think. And I think that stuff also is very close to getting taken care of. And I don't see anything out there that's going to have any impact on the schedule overall for the project where the town needs to get involved, other than potentially the surf diner. That's the other one, and that's the surf diner. And to be perfectly frank, neither Consensus nor us has any ability to press them.
Correct.
We have no contractual relationship to them, so we can't do anything. So any pressure that is to be put on them has to come from the town. And that's the only place where I would say that we would need at this point the town's additional input, is to make sure that they give us what we need and really understand that there's some sort of penalty if they don't respond.
Yes.
But that's not something that we can do and we can handle, and we can even say to them. So that I would say would be the only place. Otherwise, I think we're at a point where we've gotten through those hurdles that are at the start of a job, and that we're operating as a pretty good team.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And on I want to comment on the RFI thing. So a lot of times the approach by the design team is they don't want an RFI. Okay. Testament to Jonathan, say a dimensional issue comes up, it works, but maybe in the field they say, hey, this is how we're going to build it. We think these stairs need to line up a little bit over here. And they come out to the site and he tells us, put it in an RFI. So they go out, we mark it up. And now this might take a week. It might take 7 days or whatever, but it's documented. And then we came up with a solution that worked structurally, but also aesthetically. So like we could have just built it would have worked, but then it might have been, the 30% of engineers and contractors walk up and say, hey, this stair could have been 5 inches over. So they're kind of things that we work out. If we wanted to just slap it up, we could, and it would have been per the contract, and he would have been fine. But there are things like that come up, and we work through those.
I tell John and Doc all the time, send an RFI, because I want to document it. I want there to be a project record of anything that's even a remote little change, so that at the end of the day, you guys know what you have. There's a very clear record of saying, hey, this was what was on the drawings, but hey, field conditions said now we have to do this. Cool. Now it's all documented, and I'm not afraid to have the number of that creep up, because I just want there to be absolute clear documentation, so that at the end of the project, everyone knows exactly what was delivered.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, there were 3 things that I wanted to answer to when you guys came up here, and I think we have them, but I'd like to recap it just so everybody knows. The first thing is, are we on time? And I understand that what you were talking about, that We have some value engineering we have an accelerated schedule. We're looking at the date is October, but you're saying that it may be until the beginning of the year, March of next year before we're totally ready to go.
That's possible. So there's two different fronts. So I'll explain it to you real quick. So you have a commencement date. The original base contract before the change was, say, 18 months. Then when we did the change for construction, we went with 60 days.
So the original was in July. Okay, and then when we did the restructure, it became October.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, per the contract with impacts, you could have RFI delays, you have forgivable weather days. Jonathan asked us to go ahead and put all those in, and we're going to put them in to see where the contract days fall. So one approach, if we were a $1 billion company, would use an impact schedule, put it all the way out, and charge for all the days. We're not putting those days on the record yet because we bettered them. So right now, you're looking at from commencement, the base contract plus the 60, plus the weather days and a couple days, and that's what it should come out to. We'll finalize that on the 25th, but they should be somewhere around October, November. If we finish early, we need to because everything's going up. So
Okay.
our intent is to have not a contractual substantial completion in the summertime, but a pier that you can walk on in the summertime.
That's fine. Question number 2. I hear all this about value engineering and what we've done and that the prices of everything going up. Here's the question. Are we on budget?
So we talked about that today. Through all the procurement and working with the marine contractor, concrete, materials have gone up 100%, 200%. These ideas of inflation at 7 to 10%, that's a different way to evaluate. It has nothing to do with it. We have not submitted one single material increase. We've absorbed them. These last couple ones that are tied to things that are delayed, we have to evaluate and see what it is. It's not a big figure. So if we can finalize the siding thing, we got some rebar, maybe 3 or 4 items, we're in the home stretch. So that is the only thing. So I don't know what your overall budget is, but as of right now, our entire price with the improvements is basically right around where our bid price was. So we're looking at, I have to see what some of these, like the siding, there might be a siding increase. There might be 3 or 4 things that are tied up either with the surf diner or approvals that have gone up. He's told us to get full documentation to show it and present it. So it's negligible at this point. It's, in regular people's terms, it would be a lot of money, but on a percentage of a $15 million project, I think it's going to be pretty good.
Okay, and then the last question is there anything that the town needs to do or we need to do to help facilitate your project?
Surf diner, quick approvals, and we got the parking lot. We got to get that knocked out. The approval on that, what we're going to do, and then also that 4th thing is the layout. Because if we do say, hey, we just leased out this area right here to go to so-and-so kiosk, and we got to run an outlet and a drain or whatever, then that would affect the schedule. So those 4 items are the 4 that I have on.
But you don't need those right now.
Not right now.
Okay.
I would say in the next 30 to 60 days, we need to wrap all this stuff up.
Okay.
I mean, in order to pull this off, we need to wrap it up. And I think it's very possible.
Right. And from just, speaking from the perspective of what can the town do is when there are items that need town approval, we need to have that turned around quickly to make sure, just like we're trying to turn around everything quickly for these guys. We appreciate you guys turning that around quickly so that they can get going. We don't want that.
I got you.
Hold on. That and as we said before with the surf diner, that's the critical is putting pressure on them so that we can get the information we need to move forward.
All right, well, I thank you guys for coming by, and I'm sure everybody liked hearing what you had to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
All right,
us.
thank you.
All right, thank you. And the next thing on the agenda is the finance report by Director King. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. I do like what they just said. It kind of made me feel not so bad. I do lose sleep over that pier every night. Anyway, this would be the financial report for January. We're off to having a great year for 2022. If you've noticed in this report, it appears the general fund will have a positive financial results due to the increased revenue and property taxes, licenses, permits, franchise fees, and the American Rescue Plan, which was 1.1 million. Revenue totals 5.9 million so far, and we are about ready to do business license renewals in March, which should bring us in considerably more money. It's anticipated that expenditures will also increase because we now buy things this time of year in order to have them for summer. So we go out and buy extra water and things like that that we need, whatever we're gonna need for the baseball fields and all of that. So the next couple of months, we spend a lot more than we do in November and December. There were 27 new business license accounts opened in January. 6 of them were new businesses. 6 were new rentals. I like those rentals. 13 new contractors and 2 out-of-town businesses. Special revenue funds are doing extremely well. The accommodations fund, we got our money from the state this month, 593,000, and 6,000 came in from the sale of the Kubota, which we turn around and buy a new Kubota. The state forwarded 97,000 for October, November, December, because they take $50,000 out of that for the May bike events. They hold back $50,000 for us to spend on bike events, and then we ask for it to be paid back to us after May. Hospitality collections totaled 682,000 year to date. Our total from our local collections were 826, and from Horry County, well, no, I didn't read that right. Horry County, our local collections were 682, and the county has sent us 826. So you can see the county is doing incredibly well at sending us money. Local A-tax totals 161 from local and 164 from Horry County. Those are they stay about even. In addition, these 2 funds received 622,000 from Horry County as a settlement of the tax dispute. The 21-22 budget has set that entire pool of money to go to the pier. Capital Project Fund engineering work has started on the road paving project, which is expected to start in the next couple of weeks or in the spring. The Dogwood Swash is now complete. The town expended 410,000 this year. We did also spend money last year. Pier Enterprise Fund and the Sanitation Fund, Pier Fund, pier costs are on the next page, which I'll go over in a minute. Sanitation Fund, the revenues from fees and grants totaled 922,000 year to date. Operating expenses are 831, and they will also have, Sanitation Fund will also be positive for the year. Lanier is just getting ready to gear up again in March, and net revenue from parking totals 119,000 this year. If you want to turn to the next page about the pier, we'll continue on about the pier. So far through January, we've paid Consensus all the way over to the right. We've paid them $7,009,050. So that would be through February. We paid them $820,000 in January and $1,210,000 in February, which was really for January's work. So the cost to date, if you go down that first column, is the cost to date to us is $8,832,944. And we break that over in the next column to the right. On the pier, we've spent $7,934,770, and on the building, we spent $831,527. What's going to happen now with the building going up is it's going to switch. We're not going to spend as much on the pier. We're going to spend more on the building, and that's our nickel. So I'm trying to get as much money as we can, our $9 million out of the Fed, so that we have all of that to work with. So the grant from FEMA is $9,947,000. They've given us back $5,365,000. There's $2,200,000, almost $2,300,000 pending. We did get another check in the past week, so it's down to about $1 million. But we also sent them another $1 million this week, so they're getting better at paying us, so hopefully things are going to move along faster. So with all of that, we think that we have funds available, $18,242,000 to build the pier. If you look at the next 2 columns down is our projection. And the good news of that is if we bring in $18,242,000 and it's only going to cost $17,689,000, we are ahead. And there is some more grant money that we should be getting from Mr. Fry, possibly, and some other things that are not quite in this number. We have to, as it keeps moving, as we keep finding out more information. But at this point, it appears to be pretty good. Does anybody have any questions on this schedule?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just, of course, I have a question, Diana. We have, not including the initial change order to revert back to the all concrete design, we've got, $150,000, $160,000 plus the insurance, which was supposed to be our cost initially. But we haven't reduced any of our contingency allocation for the change orders that we've approved. So, I mean, should not the 500,000 that was originally set aside as contingency for the pier have been reduced by the, $168,000? Similarly, I see that we've reduced the building contingency by 300, showing the 200 that we have to allocate to the Surf Diner, which is good. But should that 300 also have been reduced by the 68 that came from the change order in April? I mean, for the purpose of having a contingency, you kind of use it over the course of a project. I'm just saying that I think those numbers should be reduced by the change order values, just to show an more accurate project total cost. I mean, it'll give us, instead of 17.6, it'll give us, 17.4. But
Well, I guess this was worst case scenario. So leaving it at $1 million, 500 and 500 at this point, until I heard what I just heard right now, which, I mean, we'll be happy to do that, but I think this was worst case scenario, which is where we were going, to make sure we at least could cover worst case scenario. I thought that was what we were trying to do. But I can reduce that, that's no problem. Okay, and the next pages after that, if that's the only question on the pier, there's a revenue and expenditure statement for each fund. The general fund is brought in 5,920,000, and then if you go back to page 8 or 9, it shows the expenses. And in red, I've put what the net is. So our net so far this year is a net of 453,000 that we're to the positive. And then the next one is the net for the pier, which is 90,000. The next one after that is the pier, which shows $6,856,000 profit, but that is the money from FEMA, which is counted as revenue, even though it's a grant every time we get it. Accommodations, we have $200,000 net. Hospitality is $546,000. One that's in the hole is, it looks like for the year, is local accommodations, but that's because we had money saved from prior years, and that's what we're burning off to use this money to send to the pier. The stormwater fund is $200,000, has $2,400 is what they have actually. But we haven't started too much on that. Well, we just finished the bridge in there, that's why. And on capital projects fund, we have $120,000 net. And that's where we stand at this point for everything. The spring, we tend to bring in more money. Pretty much our real estate taxes are in pretty much. So the next thing we have is to wait for business license to come in March and April. So February is our month. It's kind of the crossover. Horry County's pretty much given us all they're going to give us. There's a little bit left, but not a lot.
Mr. Mayor, just correct me if I'm wrong. When we did the budget last year, with this budget, we weren't fully forecasting what the impact of the settlement new configuration of collecting the hospitality and accommodations tax would be. Isn't that correct? So we're actually getting a lot more hospitality tax from the county and, our own collection and the county than we had budgeted in the first place, correct?
Right. So if you look on the page, which is 4 of 7 at the bottom, we thought we were going to get $640,000 from the county, and we've gotten $826,000. And we thought we were going to get $380,000 for the settlement, and we got $417,000. So we are a little, yes, we are ahead, but we had absolutely no way to know. It was best guess at the time, which is part of what you did with budget amendments, which we're going to finish tonight, was to fix all of that to the best that we know now.
And that does forecast a little bit more for the balance of this fiscal year? Or are we going to have another one, or just allow the fund balance to be excessive at the end of the fiscal year?
As long as you have the revenue to come in for that, you don't have to do the budget amendment. We did this so that you'd have a baseline.
Well,
To go from.
and we needed to spend some of
We,
it, right?
we need to spend some of it, that's for sure.
Okay,
But yeah, it
All
should
right.
be, we'll know better where we are, I think.
all right,
As long
thank
as
you.
the tourists keep coming and they don't, as long as they keep coming.
But in the next budget cycle, we can forecast
Mhm.
that revenue a little bit closer, because we're
Okay.
not going to change methodology in the middle of the year.
No, there'll be no methodology. It'll
Right.
just be whether they keep coming,
Right.
which we have to hope they will.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Thank
Anybody have any other questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Great job.
Okay. You're doing
Thank you.
good. All right.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Diane.
The next thing is the police department report by Captain Miller. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, residents and visitors. Appreciate the opportunity to come in and give you the report for the police department for the months of December and January. The chief sends his wishes. He's off at continuing training and education, and I told him that I would let him know we all missed him tonight. So getting into December, a couple highlights here. December was a very busy month, especially compared to the previous year. We saw a little over 34% increase in calls for service from the December of the prior year. And we actually saw an 88, almost 89% increase in cases and arrests, citations, things like that. So it was very busy. The officers stayed very busy. And the rest of those numbers you do have in your packets. We had an officer come on to the agency, a certified police officer from another agency, Andrew Valentine. He's acting as one of our flex officers right now, and he's out on the road and doing a good job. Training and canine activity for December and January, actually both, is we didn't have much activity for canine because of the issue with the patrol car. I would like to let everybody know that the new canine car is outfitted. It's actually sitting right out in the parking lot. So anyone that wants to come out after the meeting and take a peek at it, push the buttons, make the lights go off, and you're more than welcome to. It's what the community has paid for, and they're entitled to come out and see what their money purchased. So we're really excited about that. We should see that in service next week. A little bit about just overall workload and things that we did in the month of December. We had just over 2,000 calls for service, I believe 2,008. We had 68 custodial arrests, which is a little bit on the high side based on prior years. 324 citations that were issued, 35 criminal arrest warrants, and 13 of those were for drug-related offenses. We took 24 of our prisoners to the J. Reuben Long Detention Center, and just a few more than that at 31 to the Myrtle Beach Police Department. That arrangement continues to have been a good decision and helps us out in our daily activities. We issued 298 written warnings in lieu of citations when we made stops or for violations or other non-traffic related reasons. One other thing is we assisted with the tree lighting ceremony, which went off very well in December, Christmas golf cart parade, and the town's annual Christmas parade. And any other questions about December, I'll be glad to answer for you. Okay. And
I just have one quick one.
yes, ma'am.
What do we contribute the additional arrests and citations for? I mean, if calls for service went up 34%, I'd expect arrests and citations may be similar, but, to have almost a 90% increase over December of last year, what do we contribute that to?
So a couple things would be, as our staffing came online, by the time the year ended out in December, we had all of our open positions filled, and we were trying to get officers into the field. So very often when you see officers out in field training, that tends to sometimes generate more proactive work because you have two people in a car. They're really working hard to train the new staff. And also we did see a lot of just increases in some overall offenses, a lot of increases in alcohol related offenses. So I think saw some increases in DUI enforcement that was stepped up, especially around the holidays. It's Christmas and New Year's. And so it just seemed to be a trend climbing that we saw. So as we pushed out into the streets, it was actually pretty busy and pretty temperate December in the area too. So there were more people out and about, and it just resulted in, I think, just a little more business out in the streets. So as we go into January, we did also see some increases in January, but not as much. January, we showed about a 32% increase in calls for service from the prior year. Arrest and citation data showed an almost 19% increase in citation and arrest data. One of the new officers that came on, Michael Pados, while he was in the academy, he resigned his position. He actually had an opportunity to go out into some private sector work. I think it was one of those offers you couldn't refuse. It was, we were a little disappointed in it, but he felt it was the best thing for himself going forward. And again, just the same thing on the canine activity, but we hope that on the next report, the canine activity will be pronounced. Also in the month of January, just as a summary, we answered 1,719 calls for service, made 27 custodial arrests, 216 citations. There were 9 criminal arrest warrants. 4 of those warrants are related to drug cases. We transported 7 prisoners to the J. Reuben Long Detention Center and 18 to the Myrtle Beach Police Department. Some of that's reflected in probably some staffing and manpower issues with Myrtle Beach, and they were actually able to receive more of our inmates in the month of January. So it saved us some trips to Conway. 303 written warnings were issued in lieu of citations. We find that's a pretty good balance. And notable events, this is kind of the year-end wrap. 2021 statistics showed an overall just over 5.5% increase in calls for service from the prior year. So things are picking up. Arrest and citation data between 2022 and 2021 showed a 22.72% increase. In the calendar year, the police department answered 21,473 calls for service. That resulted in 475 custodial arrests, 2,782 traffic citations, 302 criminal arrest warrants, 105 of those drug related. We had 2,095 warning citations in lieu of traffic citation, or warning tickets in lieu of traffic citation. And for the year total, we took 203 of our inmates to the J. Reuben Long Detention Center, and just over that at 217 to the Myrtle Beach Police Department. So be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Y'all
Thank
have a
you.
good night.
All right, next thing on the agenda is a discussion about the Santee Cooper underground utilities. And I asked for this to be put on the agenda because everybody's asking about the underground utilities and what our schedule is and how we're going to do it. Well, this week we met with Santee Cooper, who came in to give us our franchise check. So we get a franchise check from Santee Cooper twice a year. And as they presented the check for $153,000, we had an in-depth conversation about underground utilities. And we talked about the projects that we have currently for underground. And basically, here's what we got. Our wants for underground goes from 9th North to Melody Lane. That strip was never done in underground utilities. The next one is from 3rd North to 9th North. And the last one is from 9th North until 16th North. Those are the Ocean Boulevard, the 3 sections of Ocean Boulevard that have not been done. So here's the deal. Given that, to go from 9th Avenue South to Melody Lane, the cost projected for that is between $3 and $9 million. Okay? The cost to go from Ocean Boulevard from 3rd North to 9th North is between $3 and $9 million, the same price. And then the cost to go from 9th North to 16th North is between $1 and $3 million. That's a good deal. Okay? So that's where we stand right now. Those are the costs that need to be done. We currently, every time that we, our franchise fee calls for Santee Cooper to put money away for projects. We currently have $700,000 in our fund. So that's not enough to do any of the projects that we need to do. But in conversation with John Adair John Adair is telling, and the way that we've always done it in the past is we take our franchise fee, we let it build up for 3 years. And in 3 years, we'll have $1 million or over $1 million. Then we start our project. Okay, then we get our project done and we don't do another project for 3 years. Okay, it hasn't been 3 years since we finished the 3rd Street Promenade, which is the last project that we used the funds for. So in talking to Mr. Adair, we basically said that we haven't, and the way things work is if we want to do a project, like let's say right now, we want to do 9th South to Melody Lane. The first thing we need to do is get it engineered. And just to have it engineered takes a year. And then we work on the project to get it done. So that's what they're telling us it needs to be. John Adair's recommendation, and council hasn't figured out what we're going to do yet. I'm just giving it to you guys for informational purposes, that we think that we have enough right now to get it engineered. So what we may do is we may make the decision to engineer whichever project that we pick, and then it takes a year to engineer it and get it done, and then we may work something out to get it done at that time. So that's where we stand, and that's where it is. So everybody's asking about the underground utilities. Everybody here wants to have the underground utilities done. It's just a matter of money. And, you know, with everything that we have going on right now, this may not be the perfect time to do it. So the other thing is that, and we discussed this last year, is the way that things work with Santee Cooper is we have $700,000 in our account right now. The way that it works is we can basically go 3 times over that with Santee Cooper, and they'll let us do the project. So if you looked at that, we have 2.1 million that we could do the project on. We just don't feel that right now is the time to do the project, but it may be the time to do the engineering. So that's why I brought it to you guys to explain where we stand on it. Okay. Does anybody in council have any questions on that? All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
sorry, just one clarification, that we're talking 9th South to Melody, 9th South to 3rd North, 3rd North to 16th North.
3rd North to 9th North. 9th South to Melody Lane, 3rd North to 9th North, and 9th North to 16th.
Okay, because we
Those are
already
the-
did them at.
Right.
Okay.
We did Surfside Drive to 3rd North, and we also did Surfside Drive to 9th South. That has already been done. And there is some talk about, you know, we just got 17 done in doing everything, but we did not put the utilities underground on that. So we don't know what the cost is. You know, we've got a lot to do as far as evaluating what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So I'm just letting you guys know when everybody's saying, how come we don't do this? How come we don't do that? Well, basically the main reason is the money. And then putting our priorities together to figure out which we want done first and how we're going to do it. Okay. Moving into the business section, the next thing is Surf Dreams with Phil Jackson. Good evening. How you doing?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. How's everybody doing?
Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was tough. Just come to you guys to get permission and approval for our 3 Take a Kid Surfing Days, our East Coast Grom Tour Surf Contest, and our annual Carolina Cup Surf Contest as well. We have decided to add one more Take a Kid Surfing Day at the Holiday Inn this year because it was so successful last year. We had over 120 kids at each one. That is absolutely free for everybody. Kids in and around our community who do not have surfing accessible to them on a daily basis. We provide the surfboards, we provide the instructors, we provide just a fun event for them to come out and have a good time. And the Carolina Cup, last year, we moved it from Garden City to the Holiday Inn. That's in September. We had almost 300 entrants, and we had over over 40% of those were from out of town. And even Costa Rica and Puerto Rico were in showing for that event. So this year, we're expecting about 350 to 375 participants. We are adding a live webcast, so it will be broadcast to all over the world. And we're going to be doing live music at the Holiday Inn. We're going to be doing a Hawaiian luau theme party. And of course, all of this is going to be family friendly. We have the support of the Holiday Inn, and we have the support of the police department and the beach services. And now we're asking for support from you guys to make it happen. We're coming a little early because we have a lot of planning to do. And we want to make sure that we get the approval and start our planning process. And we also went to ATAX this year. I do not know the outcome of that. I've been out of town, so I haven't really asked. So I guess hopefully I'll clear it up tomorrow.
Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just one question, and maybe it's more for Robert sitting there than Mr. Jackson. You know, we're in the process of revamping these special event permits. Is what we're asking of Surf Dreams compliant with what that future ordinance may look like?
So obviously we did
Go ahead, come on.
so we did the workshop on chapter 12 just recently. Obviously that has not passed yet.
Correct.
But I'm kind of working with Mr. Jackson and some others to kind of, you'll notice the document you have in front of you is that application. He's filled that out for us to kind of get that ball rolling so we get into the process and the habit and working out any kinks while we're doing that. So yes, it'd be the same.
Okay, but being that this is not on any kind of town or public or, you know, town-owned property, town public property, which however you want to look at it. I mean, this is Holiday Inn property. This is, you know, the public beach.
Right.
So some of those other, I'll call them more prescribed requirements would not apply to these type of events. I'm thinking about the insurance and all that. Is that correct?
Well, it is regulated by the town. And if the town is allowing an event, I think in this discussion about insurance is something that should be had.
Okay, and you're all good with
We've
that?
talked about
You've
that.
all talked about it and everything's
I got all
on.
kinds of insurance.
I figured you would. I figured you would. I just want to make sure we're following our own rules and where we want to be headed, so.
And I will say that form, I do surf contests all over the world, and I, fill out 30 to 40 permits a year, and that
Sure you
thing is
do.
right on par. And it's a really good, it's a really good application, and it covers all the bases.
Okay,
They
great.
did a really good job.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I got one for Robert real
sir.
quick. To make sure that you're getting with him on advertising and stuff and promoting this, are you promoting his stuff big time in our web pages and stuff like that?
Well, once
And
we get,
Facebook
once we
and-
get approval from council to go forth and he's okay to do it, then I'll get.
You have no, okay,
We
That's
haven't done it.
something that I'm gonna come in after we get, the approval.
right.
Come in after and ask for some, maybe some additional, advertisements through the town.
Yeah,
And things like
because
that, 'cause we're gonna be really pumping up Surfside Beach.
it'd be very beneficial to the,
And just
the
real quick, just
visitors.
so you guys can see, we have the logo.
Yes.
You guys are the first
Once
ones
we
to
get
see
the
it.
approval,
Yeah.
it'll be added to the
So-
website and
okay, very good.
This is gonna be the logo, lines up, and I just added a little couple pictures to take kids' recommendations.
Nice.
Any other questions? I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Last year, it was a huge success in what you did. What can we do to help you make it better?
I think maybe the advertisement on some of the town's web pages, and maybe, I know at the Guy Daniels that you guys allow a banner put up by the town, maybe something like that. We can, that's a bridge we can cross when we get closer. But anything you guys could do for advertising would be awesome.
And what was parking an issue?
It was not. We actually had a shuttle running,
And where did you park to run your shuttle from?
Ollie's and my surf shop.
So up at the shopping center,
Yeah, up at the shopping center.
Park them up there and bring them.
And I'm a tenant, so I got approval for that. So,
and you're willing to do that year round for us, right?
hey, listen, I was just in Florida on Saturday running an event, and they have these cars that are like 15 passengers. If you buy two, I'll be more than happy to operate that business.
Okay, any other questions?
No, I just want to give you all the support we can give you as a town. This is a great cause and look forward to it. And we'll see some surfing going on.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I can't wait for this year. It's going to be big.
Call anytime.
So if we move forward on this, I'm going to need a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept Surf Dreams Foundation's proposal for surf clinics in April, May, July, and August, and to conduct the Pro-Am Surf Contest in September.
Second.
Is there any other
that about-
questions before we vote? All
You nailed it. You're on the board.
right, Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Cracklaw,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and myself is yes. So
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
I
Good
appreciate
luck.
it. Thank you.
we look forward to seeing you there.
Yes.
All right, next thing on the agenda is the second reading of ordinance 22-0945, an ordinance of the town of Surfside Beach to amend fiscal year 2021 through 2022 municipal budget. Director King.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept for second reading ordinance number 22-0945, making the appropriate budget amendment to the fiscal budget of 21 to 22.
Second.
Take it away.
Take it away. Well, most of this is just to adjust the budget for things we've already, obviously, things we've already spent. And I can just go over them quickly so that the public is aware. We did $25,000 for the Wonderful Life program, or It's a Wonderful Life in December. We bought a new webpage for $12,000. The town hall purchase was $1,850,000. We got new employees in administration, fire, and building for an approximate cost of $175,000. The American Rescue Plan, we gave out a bonus to our employees. That was $90,000. The K-9 vehicle in hospitality was $35,000. And the fire command vehicle was about $52,000, also out of hospitality. The ATAX committee recommended the use of 2021 funds to buy a slow-speed vehicle for the police department, to put additional cameras in the beach accesses. The vehicle was $20,000, the cameras was $35,000, and then to transfer $125,000 to the pier fund to help defray some of the costs of that. And then on the revenue side, we're going to show that we received the American Rescue money of $1,126,370. The hospitality fund should exceed what we budgeted by about $800,000, and the local accommodations by $400,000. And that would be the total amendments that we would need for this year. Anybody have any questions? There's two additional sheets that explain what police department wanted, just in case anybody was curious, because that would be what Kenny would do.
Okay, are there any questions before we vote? Okay. Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Cracklaw,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and I'm yes too. So that passed unanimously. Thank you very much.
Okay, and you should see these budget amendments come through in the financial statements for next month. So when you won't see the big variances that you're seeing right now, that some of you called and asked me about, because these should be booked in there and there will not be the variances anymore. Okay.
Thank you, Diana.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is Resolution 22-145, the Community Garden Committee. Mr. Shanahan.
Yes, the primary responsibility of the Community Garden Committee is to assist the town in the administration and management of the community garden. It is, in fulfilling its responsibility, it shall perform the following functions: monitor the community garden property and notify the town of any issues, repairs, or recommended modifications, maintain a garden bulletin board, evaluate the community garden to determine if it is fulfilling the criteria established, assist in addressing any issues and communicate such issues to the town, and it would stay in existence until it's fulfilled its mission or the council decides that it's no longer a need.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Shanahan? And do I have a motion on this?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept Resolution 22-0145, to formally establish the ad hoc committee will be known as the Community Garden Committee.
Second.
Okay, any discussion before we vote? Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Crecklaw,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and myself is yes. So that passed unanimously. Next thing on the agenda is Resolution 22-146, a resolution to disband the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. Mr. Shanahan.
Yes, this committee was enacted on the 28th day of August, 2012. We have found that Surfside Beach, RE County, Office of the Agent, and other neighboring organizations are already doing a lot of what we were doing and holding events for the seniors. The committee has been inactive since January of 2020 due to the pandemic and lack of members. And the town council in a special call meeting concluded that the purpose of the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee was served by other RE County resources. So recommend it be disbanded.
All right. Do I have a motion on that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept resolution number 22-0146 to disband the Ralph Magliat Senior Citizens Committee.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or discussion before we vote on that?
I have one, Mr. Mayor. If we disband this committee, who takes over looking after that property for the town?
Well, the property itself is owned by Horry County. The building and the agency is owned by Horry County. And I know that we have helped them in their projects in the past by, helping with the yard work and decorating and stuff like that. I had a discussion with Mr. Kinkin today about that. And I think that we're going to try to get in touch with Horry County. They need their driveway asphalted. And as far as, I think that we're probably going to do some voluntary service or try to do some voluntary service to still have the needs taken care of the Senior Citizen Committee.
Sure.
And I've told them, and Ms. Kinkin and I both agree that we're both willing to volunteer to do it and take care of that. So, if you'd like to volunteer on it, that would be fine too. So any other questions or discussion? Okay. Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Crecklaw,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and myself is yes. So that went unanimously also. Next thing on the agenda is the Resolution 22-147 Peer Committee. Mr. Shanahan.
Yes, sir. The primary responsibility of the peer committee is to assist the town in soliciting and executing prudent strategy and policy for the commercial use of available space on the surrounding the Surfside Beach Fishing Pier. In fulfilling its responsibility, the peer committee shall perform functions that include identify potential uses, businesses, and/or purposes that would benefit the town, evaluate potential uses for pros and cons, including obtaining feedback from the town stakeholders, identify the potential market value of these spaces and potential candidates for targeted RFP processes. The committee would also be engaged in addressing potential operational issues and/or improvements that may arise over time. The committee will provide recommendations to the town council, including the pros and cons of such recommendations. And again, this committee would only stay in effect until it was decided the job that they were put together for was done, or the council decided to disband them.
Okay, does anybody on the council have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I just have one modification under the makeup of the members. it stipulates that the committee will be made of 5 members and that each member must be either a resident of the town or own a business resident in the town. I would also want to recommend that we add some kind of qualifications of experience, that candidates would have some kind of retail property management type of experience to bring to the committee, since we're going to be looking to them to be making recommendations on the best uses and the best deals, if you will, for leasing the property and how to situate the marketing aspects of the businesses on the property.
Are there any other questions? I need a motion with the amendment if everybody agrees on the amendment.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept Resolution 22-0145 to formally form the peer parking or the peer committee with the addition of experience qualifications for each candidate member.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion before we vote on it? Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Kreklong,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and myself is yes also. So that passed unanimously. The next thing on the agenda is the resolution 22-148 World 1000 Catamaran Race.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept Resolution 22-0148 to temporarily suspend enforcement of certain provisions of Chapter 12 to accommodate the World 1000 Catamaran Race.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Blomquist.
Okay. Yes, sir.
If you have any questions, that's all.
Well, what-
You look at me, so I
Yeah,
thought I'd-
what is this race? What are they going to do?
No problem. So the World 1000 is a catamaran race that goes from Florida to Virginia. I don't recall exactly how many years, but it's been going on for decades. It last came through Surfside Beach in 2018, before the pandemic, and it made a stop in where they're proposing now, which is the Holiday Inn. Essentially, what they are looking to do is they go and start in Florida, and then they hit various checkpoints along the way. They're looking to have Surfside Beach as one of those checkpoints. They would arrive here on May 16th and then depart the next morning on May 17th. Their arrival would sometime be around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're looking at having anywhere from 13 to 17 catamarans. They would bring those boats ashore, lay them on the beach right there in front of a Holiday Inn, and then the next morning about 10 o'clock, they would depart and continue on their race, their trip.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Just make sure we advertise it and get as many visitors to want to come see it.
They ain't gonna be sleeping on the beach, are they?
No, sir.
They're in a hotel.
No, sir. They have already procured rooms at the Holiday Inn.
Okay. Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Kreklong,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and myself is yes. So that will be happening. And the next thing is a decision paper, a request for a police vehicle. Mr. Shanahan.
Yes, sir. On February 1st, 2022, on vehicle 536, a 2013 Ford Police Interception sedan was involved in a motor vehicle collision, which it was totaled. It was not our fault. The vehicle is considered a total loss due to the age, mileage, and condition. We settled the vehicle's loss at $10,000. That's what we got insurance, which was a blessing. The police department traditionally budgets 2 police vehicles in each budget to maintain proper fleet safety and ensure practical capital replacement schedule. this was one of those on the upcoming budget, on the upcoming capital. So that would definitely change that. We wouldn't buy this and buy two more at in the next budget. The loss of the vehicle was an unplanned loss. Procurement of government vehicles is estimated to be 8 to 12 months due to the market. If you allowed us to procure the vehicle at this time, it would help us get it in when we were going to get it in anyway for the capital improvement. Some emergency equipment was salvaged from the vehicle, but it's in poor condition or at end of life because it was put in 2012 when the vehicle was originally purchased. We are eligible to also submit for a $4,000 reimbursement grant. And if approved, this vehicle will reduce the requested capital motor vehicle count for fiscal year 22-23 by one vehicle, because it would not be right to do this and then get two more. That would be one more than we should have. So recommend allocate a maximum of $55,700 in hospitality tax funds to procure a new police vehicle for the police department to replace the total police vehicle.
So basically what we're doing is we're accelerating our depreciation or capital schedule on this vehicle because of the fact it's due to be replaced next year, but because of the accident, we're replacing it this year.
Plus we get that 10,000 insurance that we wouldn't have got next year.
So next year, we're only going to be asking for one vehicle instead of two?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, but from a practical standpoint, if the actual turnaround and procurement process is 8 to 12 months, this is authorizing to begin the procurement process, in which case the funding, which would not be 55, if we get the insurance and everything else, it would only be 41, would actually be built into the next fiscal year's budget. Or do we have to pay for it when we start the procurement process or when we receive the vehicle? Because in that case, we're not really moving funds up at all. We're still procuring two vehicles in the next fiscal budget.
I might have to ask the finance director because I'm not sure when they get the
I think
money.
Diana could probably answer this question for us. Looks like she's looking at something.
He's hiding in the back.
Is he still here?
No.
Yeah, he's still here.
Yeah, I am.
This car was available now. If we kick the can down the road, it will be 8 to 12 months. And my feeling was that there were some cars in Columbia that we could get.
Wasn't briefed.
Isn't that right?
I believe, I'm going to double check with the chief, but I do believe that as we've done some research and try to look out to vendors and suppliers that we bought vehicles from, whether it's Durangos or whether it's Fords, there may be vehicles on lots. That gets very fluid. Sometimes you make a phone call on one day and then the next day there's vehicles. Well, we had vehicles yesterday. If we were to find a vehicle, I would imagine the desire would be to go ahead and purchase that vehicle. But as of right now, I don't know for sure that there's a vehicle on a lot anywhere.
That makes sense.
But
Sorry. Distributors are receiving cars in spurts, so we could reach out to a Ford dealer or a state contract holder or even an upfitter who says, hey, I've got cars that are dropping and put an order in now. So it is a little fluid on this car supply.
Okay, but the $14,000 that we will get to offset the cost is still, regardless of what mechanism we use to procure the car, is still available to us.
okay. Now they submit for the grant at 4,000. It's not a guarantee, right? Or is it a guarantee?
That which I think is through
Yeah.
SMRF is, yeah, so my understanding of those funds are it's a amount of like $4,000 cap, but that's a pool that the insurance pool draws from. And it's kind of one of those where the earlier you apply, the more likely you are to get it. If you waited till the end of the year and put that same $4,000 request in, they probably allocated out of those funds. So, the earlier you put in for that grant, the better chances of getting the entire 4,000.
Okay.
So since we only took 87,000 out of the additional 800,000 of hospitality tax we collected, we're going to take another 41,000 out. Okay. Thanks.
Well, I need a motion for this if we're going to consider it.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to authorize the police department to procure a replacement vehicle to replace vehicle number 536, a 2013 Ford Interceptor sedan, with the assumption that the town will obtain $10,000 in insurance and a $4,000 grant for the in-car camera solutions.
Second.
Okay, any other questions or discussion before we vote? Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Kreckloff,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and myself is yes, so that passed. Next thing on the agenda is public comments, and these are public comments pertaining to town services. Do we have any public comments?
So, Mr. Mayor,
Good evening.
public as well. I'm Lee Zulanch. I own Benjamin's Bakery in the corner of 3rd Avenue South. And I'm asking you all to put me out of my misery. I've got all kinds of vendors calling me, asking me when is going to be the Surfside Farmers Market. And when I checked into it, I'm slightly concerned that after 9 years, there's some discussion that it's going to change. I love that market. It has really increased the base business of Benjamin's. When I ask customers how they heard about us, the number that say, oh, we saw your tent at the farmer's market. And now those people actually come and will have breakfast before they shop the farmer's market. Anyway, I know there's a lot of discussion that may change it. I'm not privy to all the details that will affect it, but I felt that you all should know that if at all this business, I would love if the farmer's market continues as it has for the last 9 years. Any questions of why I feel that way or anything? Anybody? Anyway, thank you for taking the time.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
My name is Rafael. I'm owner of the Surfside Beachwear in the front of the pier. I applied in November 2020 for a permit to build a deck in front of the store, to build an ice cream and my store, make the place nice. From 2020 until today, I don't have that permit because I don't have an answer why. We follow all the procedure. My general contractor follow all the rules for the city of Surfside. We still don't have the permit. Today, when I speak with Sabrina, she tell me, you don't gonna have the permit because FEMA changed the law on November 21. You need to build a deck 14 foot from sea level. Nobody gonna be going the ice cream for 14 foot sea level climbing the stair. Nobody. So what I come to ask you guys, I want to change my parking lot to put a pader over there, make it nice, open a window and serve ice cream and put a camping table with the umbrella and make that place nice. Look much better and make it nice. This is what I ask you because I'm already spent money to get that permit from 2020 until today. So I want to know why I can't get that permit and what you can help me to do that, my ice cream.
Mr. Shanahan, you can handle that.
I can, I will get up with you tomorrow, sir.
Okay, thank you guys. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you. All right, based on that, we have an executive session that is most likely going on tonight. So we will now do the town council comments. Mr. Stamey.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. Had a good night. I was glad to hear from the peer people. I hope all of y'all were. I hope we all got a little bit more information on when it's going to be completed or when they hope it's going to be completed. And hopefully it'll come in under budget. Glad to see all of you. And good night.
Mr. Holder.
I'd like to wish everybody a great 2/22/22. A very unusual day that we have all the numbers lined up. But thank you for coming out tonight. It's been a pretty long meeting already, but I think the information on the pier was great. And also hearing all the financial report was great tonight. So thank Diane for that. So thank you.
Ms. Keating.
I want to thank everybody for coming out, and those, if anyone's tuning in, it's always very encouraging to see a full house, that people are showing their interest in the operations of the town, the decisions that are made, and some of the rationale behind them. So that's always very encouraging. I'm a bit disappointed that we did not have the first reading for Chapter 12 that we discussed last week in our workshop, as far as making the changes for our third-party visitors and event promoters that come to town. It's long past due that we start being a little more consistent with how we operate the town and how we interface with our events and third parties that want to come and succeed in our town. We need a lot more consistency in a lot of areas. So I'm a bit disappointed that that hasn't come forward, because you figure that's going to be another month before that's actually finalized at best. So, but other than that, I'm so happy that Mr. Jackson has decided to keep Surfside on the Surf Dreams Foundation's agenda. That's always been a very profitable event for not only the foundation, but also for the town as well, bringing all those visitors. So I think we've done some good things tonight. We've finally formally established the Community Garden Committee that has been actually in operations for the better part of a year. But we can finally get all that legality caught up. And I'm very anxious to see what we can bring together for the peer committee and get some creative ideas on making that the destination for the Grand Strand. So I think we've got some very exciting things about to happen for Surfside. So with that, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you here again in a couple weeks. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Crecklaw.
I'd like to thank all for coming out and the ones listening, and I'm glad to hear the pier is on budget and on time, so it sounds. Other than that, I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Mr. Kinkin.
First, I want to thank our staff for all the work they do. If you go in the town hall, be sure and say hello to Brian, because he's giving out the stickers like you wouldn't believe. I also want to thank our public works, because you know what a fantastic job they do keeping our town clean. And then the safety part, the fire department and police department, they do a great job for this town, and we're lucky to have them. I also enjoyed the peer report. It's a very complicated project. One little thing affects something else, and the coordination is tremendous. It has to go on, and I think they're doing a very good job. While I don't think it's going to be on schedule, it's going to eventually be a wonderful pier, and I'm so forward looking to it. It's going to be something nice for Surfside. The Surf Dreams and the catamaran race, I'm glad to see that being in Surfside. Actually, it's not far from where I'm on the beach, so I get to watch it from a close distance. But it's a lot of people participate, and a lot of families participate. So it is something good that we're going to be the family beach. This is the kind of entertainment, functions that we should have. So I want to congratulate them for considering Surfside, and I'm glad to have them here. Other than that, the people that are here, I'm glad to see you here. The people who have tuned in or listening in, either one. Thank you for participating and listening. And you all have a great week, and we'll see you here in 2 weeks, maybe 3.
Mr. Drake.
I don't have a
Yeah.
calendar.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and coming out and visiting with us tonight. And again, sir, the Carolina Cup part of the surf festival thing is going to be great. I'm glad Robert's going to be advertising that for them and Mr. Jackson. It's a wonderful thing that we can bring the community together, the kids together to do something very fun and productive. And the police department, thank you for what you do. I appreciate it. And we'll see you all in about 2 weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've had a really full schedule tonight and a lot of stuff going on. But today, earlier, we had a meeting with Keep Surfside Beautiful and Rob, our public information officer. And we talked about what we're going to do and what we have coming up. And we've got a lot planned for this summer. So once you guys, in a couple of weeks, we're starting out with the barbecue festival, and we have you can see we have the surf dreams, we have the beach cleanups coming, we have a whole lot going on. So we invite you all to get out and get involved in this and make this a wonderful place that we know it is. So I thank you all for coming, and we look forward to seeing you at these events. So have a good evening. Now I need a motion if we're going to go into executive session to do that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to convene an executive session in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, Section 30-470, A1 and A2, for discussion of potential appointments and contractual arrangements and to obtain other legal advice that may be subject to attorney-client privilege.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion before we go? Mr. Stamey?
Yes.
Holder?
Yes.
Keating?
Yes.
Kreklaw?
Yes.
Kinkin?
Yes.
Drake?
Yes.
And myself is yes. So with that, we need everybody to get out because we're going into executive session. Yes, sir.